we found mostly cargo. The cargo was silver coins. There were 25,000 silver coins. There were bronze cannon. You could find iron cannon as well. You couldn't read the letters actually, but INRI. There are a few of these different labels. It could easily turn into a horse with a pole because because this is wrongly pressed, or I don't know.
Totally.
Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will be talking about religious artifacts that we have found in shipwrecks. And funny enough, we are shooting this episode on Halloween and most probably will go out in Christmas. So happy Halloween, Merry Christmas, depending on the day that you are watching it, and let's dive into it. We have selected to talk about religious artifacts because these are artifacts that you find normally in shipwrecks of the Indian career or the time of colonization, mainly in Iberian ships, but they were present in old empires, in England and the Netherlands. You will find religious references in the artifacts, and that was very common. But on the other hand, also for me, the religious artifacts, when you find them in the shipwreck, it strikes you different as the normal artifacts. First, because they are normally personal belongings, or they were in the cabin of a person. These are not as impersonal or as cold as cargo. It's something which belonged to someone. And also because for all of them, there is a common denominator. Those are artifacts that are based in faith. People are hopeful that their life will be better and that they will be lucky and they will have love, and everything related to these artifacts is good. And you're finding them in a shipwreck, in a place that obviously didn't end up well. So that human connection to the artifact is something that is, for me as a researcher, it always separates a bit. I am a researcher with like a lot personal belongings, to study personal belongings and to try to take information out of personal belongings. And within the personal belongings, what we call in our categories religious iconography is special because of what I just mentioned. So I wanted to share with you some of these artifacts that we have found in different wrecks.
Are all of them Christian?
Yes. The ones that we will be presenting today, they are all Christian actually, because they come from Portuguese and Spanish ships. So yeah, that's...
I assume from the description, and also it ends up being funny that this lands on the Christmas episode, but that's why I'm asking, because religious iconography can be from many other religions, and this is coincidentally enough all Christian artifacts.
Yeah, well, we have found religious iconography in shipwrecks in Southeast Asia that has nothing to do with Christianity.
Yeah, I would assume.
But the ones that I selected today, they are coincidentally all from Christian origin. So we will discuss them now. I want to start by a lead seal found in the Nossa Senhora de Consolação of 1608 in Ilha de Mozambique. I have talked about this wreck in previous episodes. It was totally salvaged in the moment of the sinking. The Portuguese recovered every treasure she had, but there were plenty of artifacts remaining in the ship that gave us a very nice glimpse into the time that they were trading between Portugal and India, because they are objects of the most different provenances that you can find. And in this particular case, we found a group of lead seals, the small lead seals, that they had a variety of stamps or identifications in the lead seal. A lead seal is a small seal made of lead that...
Wow.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah.
They were used to close either canvas bags with valuables inside or boxes or chests. They were pressed in a place of this bag or chest or crate. They were pressed, and normally they would put some type of identification in the moment that you press it, like a stamp, a seal. Nossa Senhora de Consolação, we found few of them with the Esfera Armilar, which is a symbol of the Portuguese epics. And then we found coat of arms of families. You find initials, so letters that will identify who is the owner. And in one of them, because it was not in two of them, I was a little bit surprised because it had what I described in the moment of the finding, what I described in my database as a horse with a pole. It was what I saw, a horse with a pole. And I thought that could have been an identification of a family, a family name of someone that they identify with this symbol. And I just registered it like that and we store it. And some years later, and that's why I cannot say it enough, how important it is, the collaboration and the multidiscipline approach in maritime archaeology. I was talking to a colleague and showing him the photos of these lead seals. And when we got to the horse with the pole, he told me, man, this is most probably an Agnus Dei. I'm not that versed in religion. I didn't know. I couldn't identify myself, but he was a specialist in lead seals. And he said, this is most probably an Agnus Dei, which is a traditional symbolization of Jesus Christ.
I just find it funny because that, especially being that we grew up mostly atheists in our family, it's just so funny that for you wouldn't have gotten there if you hadn't had the influence of somebody else, one specialized in those type of materials and lead seals, but also potentially with way more exposure to religious iconography even than you.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned, that the importance it has to share your data, to talk to other researchers, because nobody has all the information. You have to talk to people who are specialized in certain things or who are a different background as you, and they would see things you don't see. This is something I really like of the research in maritime archaeology, because I get in touch with very interesting people and people who knows a lot. And this is a very good example. Obviously, these are small lead seals. They are pressed probably in the boat when you close the object and then you press it, sometimes, I don't know, in a rush or the boat is moving. So I assume that the Lamb of God, it could easily turn into a horse with a pole because it's wrongly pressed, or I don't know.
Totally. That's not that far off. Come on. Of course.
So I wanted to give you this example because I found it super interesting. Actually, the lead seals, all of them, they are for me interesting because normally they bring some information with them, about ownership of whatever cargo was transported in that ship in that year or in that moment. So I wanted to share this one with you, and it's our first religious icon in an artifact. The second one I want to present, actually, it is not one artifact, but there were dozens of these artifacts. And in this case, it will lose a little bit this feeling of the personal belongings, because most probably, I believe, those were cargo. And we found them in a place which is called Cidade Velha in Cabo Verde. It was the first important port of the archipelago. It's in the island of Santiago, which is where is the capital today, Praia. But in the past, the capital was Cidade Velha, which was called Ribeira Grande. It was a natural small harbor, and most of the trade and the ships arrived there. Most of the trade happened there. And obviously, there are plenty of shipwrecks and cultural remains on the seabed. And in Cidade Velha, in front of they have a beach of these rolling stones, just little pebbles that comes from volcanic rock. Very interesting, very nice beach. And in front of the beach, there are some rocks that stick out of the water. It's a very easy reference for us to work. It's a very conspicuous feature that you have in front of you in the beach.
Yeah.
And right under those rocks, we found a wreck that must have ended up there during a storm or something, because they are really visible. It must have been that they were an anchor in the harbor and then it came a storm, they broke the cables and they ended up in the rocks. Well, the fact is that that wreck, that is because of the objects that we found, the artifacts we found in the wreck, we could place it somewhere in the 17th century, most probably of Portuguese origin. We don't know the name of the ship. And it has 10 cannons and it has lead shot and trade beads, that more or less the normal kind of artifacts you will find in a Portuguese ship of the 17th century. But we started finding dozens and dozens of small copper crucifixes with the statue of Jesus, small ones, some of them with a sort of a tag in the top. Most of them you couldn't read the letters actually, but INRI. There are a few of these different labels on the crucifixes. You could see, in comparison to other artifacts that we will discuss later, you could see that they were a little bit made more in mass production. They are not as detailed, they are not as a unique piece. They were, although they are different ones, not all of them are exactly the same, but they were made like a mass production. So
you could tell that it was for either trade, sell, or manufacturing. And as you mentioned also in the beginning of the video, it's not like you found one or two, you found a dozen. A dozen sounds more like cargo than a personal item just in general.
yeah, and
a dozen of anything.
yes, and of course, and we found dozens. I think
dozens. Sorry, my bad.
I think the total amount was about 200 or so. So
yeah,
okay,
okay,
I could say hundreds.
Even more to my
I
point.
could say hundreds because
you should have said hundreds, not dozens.
we didn't find the hundreds at the same time, so we were finding by dozens.
Said it by dozens.
Yeah, okay, many dozens, and obviously that. I think it played a role, or tried to play a role, in the Portuguese attempts of dissemination or dispersing the word of God. You know, like getting to
dissemination of the faith.
Yeah, dissemination of the faith, arriving to places and telling people what their religion was better than theirs, and bringing all these little crucifixes that were obviously with the intention of being giving them to the people. So in this case, it was very interesting because it helps us in the research. But yes, it loses a little bit the flair of being belonging to one person and some special feeling between that person and that object. They apparently were cargo, judging by the number. They apparently were cargo, but I wanted to bring them to you as well. The other artifacts I want to present to you, it was found in the San Jose of 1622, a Portuguese ship of 1622 sunk in a battle in front of the coast of Mozambique. We were working that wreck from 2005 till 2007. I have mentioned the wreck in various episodes because it has been a very interesting wreck from every angle. But also, one of the characteristics of that wreck is that we found mostly cargo. The cargo was silver coins. There were 25,000 silver coins. There were bronze cannon. You could find iron cannon as well. You can find cannonballs. But very little of the personal belongings and other objects related to the daily life on board were found in that wreck, making us think that part of the ship broke and drifted a bit further away. I think we already found it, but we didn't excavate that part. We only did some test pits in different areas to confirm that yes, it might belong to the same ship. And actually, it belonged to the same ship because all the dates and everything, and it's only 400 meters away, so it's not that far. And in that place, we found the very few artifacts that are related to the people on board instead of cargo. And one of those artifacts was a rosary, or the beads are the parts of a rosary, because obviously the string rotten away. But all these beads, all these elements from the rosary were found in a very small place by the side of a ceramic bowl. So they most probably were in the cabin of someone, or more personal belongings. And I wanted to mention it because in this case, for us, it has a double importance. First, because it's a religious artifact. It's an artifact that is used in your prayers, and it obviously belonged to someone. And second, because in that wreck, those kind of finds were very rare. We found mostly the cargo part of the ship, and a little bit further, we started finding these objects. So you will see the photo. I'm sorry, but the team member that put them together to make the photo obviously had no clue how a rosary looked like. That's what you will see. But it is a rosary, and it was found in the San Jose 1622 in a wreck that very few of the domestic item or personal belongings have been found.
Just a quick question to add on to it. What material was the rosary made out of?
The beads are all the beads, and they are made of stone, and the I don't know how to describe it, but the other parts you will see in the photo, the other parts which are elongated, they are made of bone. So you have the stone and bone is the material of that crucifix.
Interesting, because the rosaries that have passed through me, many have been made out of wood, or you can make it out of anything, sure, or anything that is respected by the religion. I'm not totally sure, but that's why I was asking, since it was underwater, it wouldn't be,
exactly.
Probably it wouldn't be the wooden one.
Thankfully, those beads were made of stone, so they were still there.
Yeah.
And the bone also lasts quite a lot. So this was the other artifact I want to bring to you. Another type of artifact that you find quite frequently in Iberian shipwrecks are the medallions. Medallions are these artifacts apparently preferred by sailors and passengers to wear because you are wearing the medallion with you. You will find it will represent many things. Now I will talk about two medallions I found in the Nossa Senhora da Guia from 1721, a Portuguese ship that was going from Lisbon to Goa in India and sank in Mozambique in a place called Ilhas Primeiras, that are islands which are very difficult to navigate around because they are really far from the coast and they have a big reef surrounding them, and you see this very tiny island far away, but you could be close to the reef. So the Nossa Senhora da Guia ended up in the south part of the island of Moma. I have talked about this wreck because a big part of the debris field of this wreck, it goes dry when the tide goes down. It is in the top of the reef. So once I went around, I told you the story that I went around walking in low tide with my metal detector and going still in the debris field of the wreck, trying to locate artifacts and try to identify how far or how long the debris field was, how far it get towards the island.
It's in the radius.
Or the limits of the debris field to see where I can. Because swimming and doing that with high tide, it was very difficult because even in high tide, those places that I was exploring, they are very shallow. So any breaker, you really need like a perfect calm day to be able to work there. So I took the chance and I went walking with my metal detector. I already told you the story that the tide started coming up very quickly. I didn't follow the indications that the local fishermen were coming back, and I missed that one, and I ended up coming back to the island swimming. But in that metal detection survey, which I did around the cannons and anchors that you could see out of the water in low tide, I found these two copper medallions, which one is very worn that you could see very little, but in the other one, in one side you could see the Virgin Mary, and on the other side you could see Jesus carrying the cross, not in the crucifixion position, but like carrying the cross. So it was interesting. It's by any means something rare. This is the type of medallions you find in Iberian wrecks quite often, but it had the little difference that I found it walking. I mean, these little objects travel a lot within the wreck scattering with the waves and everything. And at least two of them were close enough that I could find them with my metal detector walking around. So I wanted to talk about these two, but there are also some group of medallions we found in the Guadalupe IV in Cape Verde, which is from 1865, that I have mentioned that wreck as well. That was a ship going from A Coruña in Spain to Montevideo in Uruguay, and they were traveling with emigrants. And the immigrants at that time were looking for a better life in South America. And as every sad immigrant story, the people who run the boat, the owners of the boat, the captain, they were people that really, they were transporting immigrants, so they couldn't care less about the condition of the boat, the amount of people that you put in. So ended up in a tragedy. They sunk in the north of the island of Brava in Cabo Verde. We found the wreck, we excavated the wreck. There were plenty of indications that was the Guadalupe IV. And within the artifacts, we found this group of copper medallions as well. Obviously, a little bit being like about 200 and some years newer than the ones in the Nuestra Señora de Guía. They were in better conditions. And you could read that most of them were like prayers, like if you will have prayer on you. Other ones were indulgences. I don't know if that word in English is correct. Indulgence?
Indulgence exists, to indulge in something, but I don't know indulgencias. I don't know if that translates or it's used in the same way in English. I'm not sure. I would have to Google it. But indulgence exists,
yeah, well,
of course.
the translation in one of them would be, there are conceded 80 days of indulgence to those in front of this saint image. So 80 days of indulgence or indulgencias.
Yeah, I don't know religiously what they were trying to say back then. Indulging in something is taking advantage. I mean, I don't need to explain it to you. Taking advantage, enjoying something.
And another one which we found also quite frequently in that wreck, it reads and it has the image, it said, Heart of Jesus and Mary, and then on the other side have Rome, Our Lady of Slavery. So there is a variety of these copper medallions. Doing the research, I enjoy a lot trying to find information about these medallions, because also it will, as I mentioned in the beginning, it will connect the hopes of people who were going from one continent to the other in search of a better life. And they brought these objects with them to help them in that path. So it is touching. It's a type of artifact which is touching. When you are used to work in shipwrecks where you are recovering cargo and something that is actually not that interesting, when you come across this type of artifacts, they are special for you. That's what I wanted to do this episode also. One of the reasons I wanted to do this episode. The last one is an artifact that you guys know, because I have mentioned it a couple of times, and it's also from Nuestra Señora de Consolación, 1608, and it's sunk in the island of Mozambique, that we made this photo mosaic of the wreck, and we recover certain artifacts. The lead seals of the first part of the episodes were from there. And this one, it has been like very interesting for all of us because of many reasons, not only because of the last result, but when Boris found it, because it was found by Boris Basnuevo, a diver and captain of my team, when Boris found it, and a friend, when Boris found it right against the wood structure, I mean, was really down to, it was completely misshapen and concreted. It was very difficult to see what it was. I remember him coming up from the water at the end of his dive and, you know, writing down where the artifact was found, in which grid and stuff. And I'm in the boat and I'm asking him, and he said, look at this is great. And I said, what's that, man? I mean, it looks like nothing. And he was very adamant, because he said, this is something. This is something. I mean, he couldn't say what it was, but he was sure that that was something.
Something relevant. He was like, Man, don't rain on my parade. This is something. We still don't know what something is, but it will be
It
something.
is something.
Believe, sir, believe.
I realized that was something when he handed it to me, and then you have the weight in your hand, and
Of course.
with your experience, you identify that yes, actually he was right. It was something. And well, we registered. We took it to the conservation center, and when the conservators play their magic, these kind of things happened. You could see this something turning into a beautiful statue of Jesus Christ, that it was certainly part of a crucifix. The crucifix we didn't find probably was wood and rotten away, but the level of detail that the artist put in that statue, it really shows the high respect for what he was doing. And for us, once the statue completely clean and conserved and stable, it was really impressive to see the amount of detail in the figure, even in the back of the figure that normally would go against the wood of the crucifix that you will normally not see, but they were present. So the entire trip of this artifact, since Boris found it looking like nothing but being sure that it was something, to the final result after the conservation process, it was quite rewarding for all of us that work in that wreck and that were in charge of the research for the story of that ship. Okay guys, thank you for watching the video till the end. If you like it, please leave it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, share it with your friends, and let's keep on diving.